And if I'm not willing to evolve, you better forget it. It's not going to work. I have to want to evolve, need to evolve, desire evolution as much as she does in order to be her partner. And that is why we work. And quite frankly, that's why our relationships in the past didn't work. And that is alarmingly clear now.
There might be something that I can learn. That doesn't necessarily mean I need to change my position, i.e. my core belief. However, if you close the door and remain closed-minded to your partner's core belief, you will be disconnected. And that will lead to you two growing apart. Conscious couples, business partners, and singles committed to attracting their dream partner. Welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast, where we share our life, love story, and combined relationship expertise to help you create and consistently cultivate the most magnificent, intimate relationship possible.
Never again will you feel hopeless and alone in your intimate relationship challenges.
Having accumulated thousands of hours coaching conscious couples and individuals all over the world, as well as starting and growing a global business together, Alan and I are here to guide you in all things relationships.
Thank you again for tuning into the one place where it's not about you or me, it's about the we. Conscious couples and individuals, welcome back to the one and only Conscious Couples podcast. Today, we have a very special episode for you, how to stay connected when there is a core belief in conflict. My goodness, we have a story for that. Before we jump into this episode, we want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Next Level Podcast Solutions for producing this show and so many others. We work directly/indirectly, I do, with 63 podcasters now. Wow. Which is wild.
That's awesome.
Yeah, group coaching, 11 members, all podcasters. Very cool. If you're a podcaster out there, reach out to myself or Kevin, ASAP Rocky. We will help you start, grow, scale, monetize. We think, breathe, live podcasting basically every day. Also, sweetheart, second thing, ladies first, what is your intention for today's episode?
My intention for today's episode is to ultimately help our listeners take this episode to navigate when there is a core belief in conflict. What is that? And ultimately have them use that to their benefit as an opportunity to grow together, not apart. Because core beliefs are something that can and very commonly do break couples apart. And I think that there's so much opportunity when there actually is a core belief in conflict for couples to grow together. And that's my personal belief. So that's my intention for this podcast episode.
So Emilia and I, we want to bring in some numbers here just so that you know that everything we're talking about is very data-driven from our own experience. So I started mentoring 10 years ago. I did it for 2 years for free. I started coaching 8 years ago. So I've got 10 years essentially of mentoring/coaching individuals from all over the world. Many of which, the majority of which, are in intimate relationships. So right now I'm currently coaching 26 individuals. Emilia is currently coaching.
Well, the last time I looked was 15, but I definitely have more than that. But that's just my personal roster. That doesn't include RTC.
Okay. So if you include RTC, you're looking at least 18, if not more.
Yep.
All right. So that's 18 plus 26. You're looking at a lot of individuals, the majority of which are in relationships. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. So when the election happened, and again, we're in the U.S., and this is the U.S. election, a lot of media, and I've learned this from clients all over the world as well, a lot of the U.S. not only is the largest economy, but it also is the media empire, for lack of better phrasing, of the world. So a lot of other people's media is actually U.S. media, and it is what it is. We're not here to talk about that. What we are here to talk about is that our clients from all over the world all were impacted by the election. And we're not going to talk about politics. However, what we are going to talk about is core beliefs in conflict were exacerbated during this time.
Oh, yeah.
And so Trump was elected president. That's as far as we're going to go on the politics end. However, there are many heterosexual couples where the female was very upset. And I looked at the data. Research only data. The large majority of Trump's voters, data only, not my opinion from my research, was men. Now, for the heterosexual couples out there and for the listeners out there, most likely, I could be wrong, but most likely you are not Trump supporters if you are a listener of the Conscious Couples podcast. However, if you are, that is fine. We agree to disagree. What we are here to talk about, however, is how these core beliefs in conflict were risen up in these relationships. Particularly, we have many clients that are empowered, amazing women who feel very unseen, unheard, undervalued, and underappreciated by their partner supporting someone who is, let's just say, not on the female's team. So, without getting into politics, my love, what is your take on this whole thing?
So, being someone who serves people so much behind the scenes, I get to have conversations that are so deep and so in the throngs of people's personal lives. People will admit things behind the scenes to me that they would never dare to say out loud to other people. And so I have the privilege to see true life behind the scenes, unfiltered, completely raw. People
Best part
at
about
their,
coaching, in my opinion.
Same. At the people at their lowest and their highest. And it is such an amazing experience. And I think that being able to hold that space for someone is where the transformation really happens. And around this topic, what I had observed working with individuals behind the scenes, it's 1,000% validating what you said, which is, and it's not just on the heteronormative relationships that experience an emotional inversion. I'm going to use the word emotional inversion and a crumbling of whatever emotional scaffolding was there leading up to and prior to, during, and after the election. Why? It shook so many people and their core beliefs that were already agitated beneath the surface. So, for example, the biggest thing that comes up for me that I want to talk about on this podcast episode, especially with our listeners in mind, is something that we had mentioned in a former Relationship Talks event, as well as gave light to in a former podcast episode. I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but it was around the core belief of time and how the documentary that we referred to, that this is going to take into, is called Fair Play. And essentially it's a core belief around women's time and what our perception of the value of that is, as opposed to male's time. So that documentary teased out a giant core belief that is globally realized, which is that women's time is infinite. Men's time is finite.
AKA, to transcode here, love,
Mm-hmm.
the majority of the statistical global population considers men's time more valuable than women's time.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of people, fortunately, who no longer agree with that. But if you look at the history of women not being able to vote until the 1920s, don't quote me on that, but it's insane. Now, here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Men's time and women's time is of equal value, but it's not treated that way. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
And so,
But not everyone is put in that camp, and I want to make that clear.
Absolutely.
And if you're a listener of this show and you're sexist, like, you wouldn't listen to this show.
Right.
Because this is an empowered woman's podcast. Emilia is an empowered woman, and I am someone who is, I always told her this from the beginning of meeting her, I want you to shine as bright as possible. I'm never going to suppress your light. And I have never, correct me if I'm wrong, not amplified who you are,
Mm-hmm.
and done everything in my power to amplify who you are as much as possible.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So why I mentioned that is because that's one of the biggest core beliefs that has been under the surface of this whole election season. And however many ways you want to slice it, what that did is it agitated a core belief to the top, which was all of the core beliefs that spun off of that core belief around gender inequality.
Yes, because it was a male versus a female election,
Exactly.
and it was also a minority female
Mm-hmm.
as well. So,
Yes.
okay, so let's get back to the practicality of this.
Let's
All right,
get into
so,
where the conflict arises.
So we have a couple that we coach, and Emilia and I were on Relationship Talks coaching session, 4-person session, and I basically said, agree to disagree is something that you can do, but it's very, very challenging to do long term. In other words, I said this to Emilia, I said, if I were to, let's say, not be all for empowered women, how could you be with me? And she essentially said, no, of course not. Perfect. That the truth is that would inevitably force us to grow apart.
Mhm.
So this is a very sensitive topic, but really underneath all this, here's what happens. Yin and yang. Male, female, male, male, female, female, whatever. You have one partner who has a certain belief,
Mhm.
and another partner who has another belief, and those beliefs are in conflict. I use the metaphor of Emilia and I. Imagine we drove across the country. So I was in my early 20s. I drove from Boston to Los Angeles. And I experienced what it was like to be in a car with someone who liked similar music, core value, wanted to take a similar route right across there. You can do the southern route, the regular, medium route, or the northern route. We both wanted to go to the same route through the Rockies, and we were going to the same destination. So that's core aspirations, core values, core beliefs that are in alignment. If Emilia and I, let's say she wants to go to Vegas and I want to go to LA, metaphorically, we can only be in the same car until Vegas. Then she has to get out, and then I have to continue on my journey.
Because our destinations, our aspirations are different.
Yes. And now imagine a core belief in conflict. She wants to go the northern route. I want to go the southern route. Now we have to take two separate cars. Mm-hmm. That is a good metaphor for what happens in relationships. One partner wants to have children, the other partner doesn't. You have to find a way to constructively and healthily resolve that conflict. Emilia and I have talked about being parents. She was talking about 3. I was talking about 2. We're not sure yet. We're going to continue talking about it. But eventually, we are going to have to come to some integration of core beliefs because we want to start a family together, and it needs to be our family, not my family or her family. It needs to be an integration. And that doesn't mean I have to sacrifice who I am. This doesn't mean she has to sacrifice who she is. It means we can find some greater end state that we both agree with through mutual growth. Now, how do you do that, sweetheart?
The question really is what this podcast episode is, which is how do you stay connected? The core thing here is connection while being on 2 separate islands, essentially, and recognizing that those islands are still made of the same thing, sand, right? You have love. You both want to love each other, right? And you have the components of an island are constructed the same. However, core beliefs, different islands. So one of the things that you and I talked about to help couples stay connected is recognize that there might be some divergence when you have 2 different core beliefs, right? Core belief in conflict. There's a moment in time where you will run parallel before you either converge or continue to diverge when it comes to your core beliefs. So to stay connected in practicality terms, you need to have an open-minded mindset around my partner might have a core belief that's in conflict to mine, and I need to remain open-minded, aka growth mindset, that there might be something that I can learn. That doesn't necessarily mean I need to change my position, i.e. my core belief. However, if you close the door and remain closed-minded to your partner's core belief, you will be disconnected, and that will lead to you two growing apart.
Hi, I'm Derek, and I just wanted to talk about relationship talks with Alan and Emilia. If you're looking to get some help on working with your relationships, you should definitely give them a shot. They can help you identify certain patterns on things that maybe you didn't realize that you've done or that have happened. And if you want to be able to just start really kind of narrowing down the things that you can work on now that'll help you be more efficient for future relationships or even the one that you're in, they're definitely the ones to go see, as clearly they lead an example of what a great relationship should look like. And just in general, they're both incredibly intelligent and smart with just being able to pick out the things that maybe either you missed or that you knew but didn't really quite click yet. So you should definitely give them a shot because they're very, very helpful and efficient at what they do.
So here's the metaphor. Let's imagine metaphorically, Emilia and I are going to drive across the country. I'm going to have her take the northern route like she wanted, go through the Rockies. I'm going to take the southern route, but we're going to FaceTime and share our experiences with each other, and we're going to meet in the middle. Let's say we meet in the Rocky Mountains, and I'm going to go southern route and share with you what I learned. You're going to go northern route, share with me what you learned. We're going to check in each day and share experiences, and then we're going to meet at a hotel in the Rockies. Yeah. That's a good metaphor of, listen, we're going to temporarily diverge, but we're going to know that we're going to come back together because we want to be together. Beautiful. And this is why most people think, while we disagree with this belief, that relationships are about compromise. We believe it's more about integration. Let me learn from Emilia, yin, and let me be me, yang, and let's make sure that the we is greater. The whole must be greater than the sum of its parts. Emilia has brought certain things into my life that I never would have done on my own. And when we did that, I learned and I grew, and now I realize the errors of my ways or what I wasn't realizing, therapy being one of them.
Yeah.
And I've brought things into her world that maybe she didn't agree with at the time, but she was open enough to trust that she was going to learn and grow. And so that's the mutual benefit of being in an intimate relationship with someone who does have a different perspective. But if you can't handle conflict in a healthy way that's constructive, you're not going to get any of those benefits, and you're basically going to grow apart.
1,000%. And that's why I deeply believe for couples who want to stay connected while there are core beliefs in conflict, you need to value growth over your current core belief system.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that one thing that is constant is change. And if you are not valuing growth over the core belief that currently is in existence today, you are going to be in trouble in your relationship, right? Whether that's forced growth or whether that's a growth as a byproduct of the social circle that your partner or you are around, things are going to change. And so your belief system inherently is going to evolve over the time span of your life. And so if you value growth over your current belief system, you will have that open-minded door open. And therefore, the value of that will come into your life to where your partner, you and your partner can connect over the growth of the journey, of the adventure, of being on a different island. And it's only temporary. And I think that that's the biggest thing for couples who do want to stay connected. Key takeaway here, value growth over your own belief system. That doesn't mean totally relinquish your identity, right? Because our core beliefs are so fundamental and core to, more often than not, who we think we are. And it can be really scary when not only you and your partner are kind of in a fight or in a conflict and feel as though like, not only is the we not good, but like now I don't know my identity. So for example, back to this couple, what they did a beautiful job at, from my perspective, is the male in the relationship post and during this election season had the courage to actually bring up like, babe, like I want you to know our destination matters way more to me and how we navigate this. AKA, I value our relationship so much more. I value growth so much more than I do my current belief system right now, because I have the humility and the vulnerability to recognize that I don't know everything. So if you have a belief system that, right, whatever your belief system is, that's data that I don't necessarily have because of my belief system. And so he valued growth over his belief system, and that allowed them to stay connected. Same thing, partner number 2, right? His partner valued their relationship and the destination of them staying together over her own current belief system.
We need to get this practical a little bit. So essentially what the female in the relationship was infuriated that Trump was becoming president anonymously. Understandable. And the male didn't agree that it was the worst thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't support Trump, but he didn't think that all is lost, and he was still hopeful.
Right.
And that disconnected them for a short time. But they came together, learned each other's point of view in that relationship talks coaching session, and actually before it too. It was before it.
And a lot of that was due to the work that we've set them up to handle conflict with.
Because if you can't handle there's one certainty in intimate relationships, and that's conflict.
Yeah.
No matter what, there's going to be core values, core beliefs, goals in conflict. Our next relationship talks event is going to be about how to set your goals up for 2025 where you can actually support each other. And so if your friend's friend's friend has a different core belief than you do, it's okay.
Yeah.
You want to know why? You don't have to live with them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have children with them. You don't have to build a career and a future and a life with them. If Emilia and I have a core belief in conflict, we have got to find a way to drive to 5 and integrate in a way where we can move forward, because core beliefs in conflict create uncertainty. Uncertainty creates lack of action. Lack of action creates lack of momentum. Lack of momentum creates being stuck. When Emilia says you have to choose growth over your current belief system, what she means is you have to be willing to evolve.
Yeah.
Her company is called Evolve Ventures for a reason. The one constant in Emilia Smith's life is evolution. And if I'm not willing to evolve, you better forget it. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
I have to want to evolve, need to evolve, desire evolution as much as she does in order to be her partner. And that is why we work. And quite frankly, that's why our relationships in the past didn't work. And that is alarmingly clear now.
Yeah.
And so for anyone out there watching or listening, you are evolving and learning and growing. And if you, like many of our clients, both Relationship Talks coaching, my business coaching, and your Evolve coaching, what that has shown me more than anything is certain relationships were not ready to actually integrate and handle this conflict constructively. And a lot of people, I forget who brought this up, and I didn't look this up personally, but apparently the divorce lawyers are getting a lot of demand right now because after the election, there was a lot of stuff that came up that really people didn't handle well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of divorce happening and a lot of couples are breaking up because of these core values.
A lot of domestic violence, right? Again, all of that is just agitating, bringing things up to the surface that, again, couples aren't necessarily talking about because it's conflict. So when the conflict is small and is building, you bet your bottom dollar it's going to come up in volcano with things like this, with the holiday season, with stress, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So another key takeaway is just recognize when your conflicts are really small and when you think that there's no bugs growing in the garden, have the humility to recognize that that's always going to be the case if you have a core belief that's in conflict.
Here's one of my core beliefs. All good in this world, all virtue will always be attacked. The bugs will always try to take the garden. Mm-hmm. So you have to weed the garden. You have to get the bugs out. You have to care for the garden. What happens to a garden when you don't tend to it?
Yeah, when it's not neglected.
It gets destroyed. It gets eaten. It gets
overgrown. And
okay, so with Emilia and I, kill the bugs while they're small, metaphorically. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Emilia and I just want to share this. Whenever we notice, even earlier before we recorded this episode, she said, what am I noticing? I said, what do you mean? She said, what am I noticing that's off in you? And I said, it's a heavy week. I've got 14 episodes. We're going away next week. I'm stressed. We got 2 episodes here. Blah, blah, blah. She is recognizing that I'm off. And she's holding the humility to actually ask me where I'm at and why, so that her and I can get back on the same page so that we can have this great episode. And so thank you for doing that. But you and I are squashing these bugs all the time whenever we notice something off. And I wonder if what I would say is in the past, I was not nearly as good at doing that. And that's what Relationship Talks coaching is. Imagine if you could monthly, bi-weekly, or weekly literally identify and rectify the root cause of any disconnect that you have with your partner. Emilia calls it relationship insurance. What if you had the insurance to know that not only you're going to grow, but your partner's going to grow, and that you two are going to grow together and not apart? So Relationship Talks coaching, the first one is free. Please reach out to Emilia or myself.
Exactly. And, the confidence that I've heard our clients really be able to have as a result of the embodiment of the skill sets that we teach them, it's like being able to have the confidence that you have control over your relationship, not over, but with how you react, how you respond, how you perceive, and like the growth that you're able to garden, the fruits of your labor. It's huge. It's liberating. And those are the words of some of our clients. So there's so much to this. And we're so excited for you to not only learn the skills, but also be open-minded to where maybe there's some tweaks and tune-ups that we can do. So with that being said, we invite you to our next Relationship Talks event. I believe this one is going to be after we've already done Relationship Talks event number 41.
No, this is going to be before.
Okay, so if it's before, are you certain on that?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Yeah,
this is next Monday?
I think it's 42.
We're way ahead of schedule.
Exactly.
Okay, yeah. Emilia's right, my bad.
Right, because
look at how we handled that conflict.
Look at us. Yeah, because you and I are recording this now and this coming Friday. Okay. Yep. All right. So anyways, we're going to bring you in on Relationship Talks 42, which is actually going to be all about how to align you and your partner's goals for 2025. More often than not, goal setting is a big, overwhelming, audacious thing that a lot of people start and then kind of gas out. And it's hard to do alone, not to mention with your partner. And so what we're going to be getting into in that Relationship Talks event is going to be all things goal setting, goal aligning, and making sure that you and your partner feel connected as you achieve and work towards your goals.
So 2025 is coming. We have 44 days left in the year. And not only are we going to set up you for success, but we're going to set up your relationship for success. Imagine a world where you and your partner sit down, you have clarity on what you want to accomplish this month, this quarter, this year, short, mid, long range, all together where you support each other. Game changer. Mm-hmm. I actually am blown away genuinely with what we can achieve together versus when I was single. 5 years ago, I was single trying to build a company and try to build a brand by myself. It is tremendous what you can do when you're on the same team. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That is our belief at The We and at Conscious Couples Podcast. So thank you so much. As always, we appreciate you. And it's not about you or me. It's about the we. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Conscious Couples podcast. We love connecting with the Conscious Couples community, so please make sure you follow us on Instagram. I am at Evolve with Emilia, and Alan is A.Lazarus88.
Also, if you or your partner resonated with this episode, leave us a review at the link in the show notes, and please share this with someone you love and care about.
Until next time, remember, it's not about you or me. It's about
the we.